God bless you, my brothers and sisters. We are continuing in our 40 days of decrease. Today's fast is from apathy. And I want to encourage you to read through the scriptures for today that's found in John chapter 16, verses 17 through 33. And then I want you to pray. Apathy rarely announces itself with hostility. More often, it arrives quietly. It often shows up disguised as fatigue or resignation or emotional distance. We see what's wrong, but we no longer feel compelled to respond. We notice injustice, but we've learned how to live alongside it. And over time, what once stirred concern now barely registers. But Lent interrupts that drift. It presses us to ask not only what we see, but what we are willing to feel and how we are willing to act. Today confronts apathy as a spiritual condition that dulls moral vision and numbs faithful response. It asks whether our silence and disengagement reflect wisdom or whether they reveal a heart that has stopped caring slowly. Apathy is emotional indifference in the face of moral reality. It is the loss of appropriate response. Spiritually, apathy shows up when injustice no longer troubles us, when suffering feels distant, and when faith becomes detached from action. Apathy doesn't deny that something's wrong, it's just not moved by it. To fast by apathy is not to manufacture outrage or to live in constant agitation. It is to allow God to awaken what has grown numb. It is the discipline of paying attention again, or refusing the comfort of disengagement and choosing faithful responsiveness instead. In John chapter 16, Jesus speaks to disciples who are confused. They are unsettled. They're uncertain about what lies ahead. And so, as they're struggling to understand his words about departure and return, their questions reflect bewilderment rather than resistance. James names their sorrow honest, or Jesus rather names their sorrow honestly, acknowledging that grief and confusion are real. Yet Jesus does not allow confusion to become paralysis. He speaks of sorrow that will turn into joy, pain that will give way to courage, and fear that will be transformed by trust. Listen to Jesus. In this world, you will have tribulation, but take heart. I have overcome the world. It's not a call to emotional withdrawal, but to resilient engagement grounded in hope. Jesus' words refuse apathy. He prepares his followers not to disengage when difficulty comes, but to remain present, courageous, and faithful, even when circumstances are painful or unjust. Throughout the Gospels, Jesus consistently responds to injustice and indifference with decisive action. When he enters the temple and overturns the tables of exploitation, his anger is not impulsive, it's purposeful. It is the opposite of apathy. Jesus is moved because he sees clearly and loves deeply. Apathy stands in contrast to this posture. It allows systems of harm to persist unchallenged. It dulls compassion and convinces us that silence is neutrality. Yet scripture repeatedly reveals that indifference in the face of injustice is itself a moral stance. You're taking a position through your indifference. Apathy protects comfort, but abandons responsibility. Faithful discipleship requires more than belief, it requires engagement. Jesus is not calling for followers to have emotional detachment, but to courageously participate in God's redemptive work. Apathy says, It's not my problem. Faith says, I can't look away. Lent exposes the places where we've grown numb and invites us to recover holy concern. Lent retrains our capacity to feel rightly. It restores moral sensitivity that's been dulled by repetition, fatigue, or fear. By fasting apathy, we're asking God to reawaken compassion and conviction, not so that we react impulsively, but so that we respond faithfully. This season teaches us that love requires attention and courage. And when we refuse apathy, we make space for God to direct our concern into just, humble, and obedient action. Today's fast invites intentional engagement. Notice where you've become emotionally distant from pain, injustice, or need. Ask what you've learned to ignore in order to stay comfortable. I want you to choose one situation that has faded into background noise that shouldn't have. And then I want you to re engage with prayerful attention and consider one faithful step, however small, that moves you toward justice, compassion, or truth. Where have I grown indifferent to suffering or injustice? What emotions have I numbed in order to remain comfortable? And how might God be calling me to respond rather than withdraw? Again, I want to commend you to read through the scriptures for today and to take the time to sincerely pray. There's more than enough happening in the world right now for you to test whether you have fallen into apathy or not. You should be concerned about all of the things that we're seeing happening around this world. And that's a pretty good place to start. God bless you, my brothers and sisters, and we'll see you tomorrow.